everybody, and you are listening to a recording of um, Sexuality Misconceptions with Diane, and we're talking about asexuality today. We're not doing a Facebook Live because we did one a few weeks ago and Facebook blocked it and shut it down because I got a message back saying because we use the word asexual, which I find funny because, I've interviewed other people like transgender, gay, lesbian, poly, like other words get out there and they're okay. And then asexual is actually not about having sex. So it just made me laugh. Anyway, but we're still learning. And I always say that at the show. This is a practice for me every day. I'm learning and I'm going to be better and better with every show. So I want to remind you that there's no right and wrong here. There's only what people are thinking and feeling and what brings you pleasure. So please keep any derogatory remarks to yourself because they will be deleted if you put any up. I encourage you to ask questions. We may not get to them now, but we could get to them at another time because my guests will come back. And we will want to answer your questions, definitely, because you know what? We don't talk about sexuality enough. We don't express it. We kind of try to leave it like just sitting there. And how long do you plan for a good vacation? How long do you plan for your retirement or for your children's education? Well, how important is pleasure in your life? Like, pleasure really needs to be planned for. We need to have pleasure every day. So that's what we're learning about on this show. We're going to talk about misconceptions that people think about on sexuality. And sometimes it's things we never heard of, so it makes us a little nervous or we get scared. So the purpose of this program is for everybody to have the opportunity to talk about what makes their life more pleasurable, what they like, and maybe it's going to resonate with you and help you someday. Maybe you have some things about yourself you don't understand, so maybe they'll come up here. You can ask questions. Feel free because we're here to learn and grow together, okay? So that being said, I wanted to talk to you about my guest, Sandra Bellamy. She is the author of Asexual Perspectives, 47 Asexual Stories. She was a speaker at the UK Asexuality Conference in London in 2018. She has been interviewed on radio programs, including the BBC twice. She has been the host of an in-person meetup group for asexual people for 5 years. Sandra is the daily chat show host of My Asexual Life on YouTube. So you can go and check her out. And I'll be posting all of these on the comments here, so you'll find them easily. She is also the founder and trainer of Asexualize Academy, the world's first online training center and school for asexuals and asexuality. And there's a free module, so go check it out. You might learn something about yourself even, or somebody you love. You can follow her blog at www.asexualize.com, and that's ASEXUALISE, okay? She can be heard on New Inceptions, Freestyle Your Life, and Straight Up Gay podcasts on iTunes. Her mission is to get asexuality recognized as a sexual orientation in its own right throughout the globe, removing the stigma and ridicule of people having no sexual desires. She identifies as a heteromantic asexual with the gray area of kissing. I like that. I like kissing too. I am happy that she is with us today, and I want you to welcome my special guest, Sandra Bellamy. Welcome, Sandra.
Oh, thank you. That was amazing. Thank you, Diane. How are you?
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I'm going to get right to the questions, all right? Because I know you have a lot to say. I know.
Yeah, my chat show's about an hour long usually.
Yeah. Okay. So my first question to you is, how do you know that you're asexual?
How do you know you're asexual? So asexuality is a sexual orientation that's a lack of sexual attraction. So basically, if you don't get the need, urge, or want for partnered sexual intercourse, you don't look at someone and think, I want sex with you, then you would likely be asexual, because we don't naturally feel that way. We're not wired that way. So sexual attraction is kind of something that's not inbuilt into us. So we just don't see people like that. We could see someone, for example, aesthetically pleasing and think they look like a beautiful painting, but we don't want to have sex with that painting. We just admire the view of it. So that's one of the analogies that I can explain. And most asexuals have an in-joke of preferring cake to sex. Like, much better than sex. That's a very, very well-known joke in the asexual community. People, okay, you know, we prefer our food to sex any day. So we like pleasures in life, but we get our pleasure in other ways, not through having sexual intercourse. And we get pleasure in other ways in relationships as well.
Okay. And so you can have a perfectly happy life, though, even though you're not having sex, and you are still finding ways to have pleasure.
Yes. So basically I live my life to the max. So I'm busy doing projects and stuff like that. I'm very creative. I'm a writer, as you know. I'm working on my second book for asexuals, which is actually called Asexual Guide to Sex, with real life asexual sex stories, sex advice, sex help, and sex guidance. It's just been over a year now that I've been working on that. So it's going to be the most amazing sex book you've ever read in your life, because it's going to be completely different to anything else you've read in your entire life in the world.
Okay, so I have to ask you this. So in my mind, I'm thinking the sex guide for asexuals. So is that like a sex guide on how not to have sex?
No. So let me explain. This is a really common misconception. So asexuality is a sexual orientation that's a lack of sexual attraction. But sexual behavior is not the same as sexual attraction. So therefore, an asexual person can still have sex if they want to. So sexual desire is the desire for sex in and of itself. Sexual attraction is when you're attracted to someone or some people, and you want to have sex with that person or people, and then you can get aroused, which is like a bodily function, without actually wanting anyone involved. Usually with asexuals, they prefer to do solo sexual activities or non-activities at all. But some asexuals don't mind having sex. Some asexuals are on the more sexual end of the spectrum, because I know I haven't mentioned the asexuality spectrum yet, but it's a huge spectrum. So the ones on the more sexual end of the spectrum might have sex. Some of them do or have done. I used to have sex. So even though I'm asexual, I didn't find out till 2014 that I was asexual. I had heterosexual relationships for over half of my life. So I did have sex in my past. I was in a long-term relationship. I've been in 2 long-term relationships, and the last long-term one, I was there with them for 8.5 years in total. We were together for like a year and a half, split up for 6 months, and got back for another 7 years, so 8.5 years in total. So yeah, and he was good at sex. So there's this misconception as well that, oh, you're asexual because you haven't had good sex. It's like, no, he was really good at sex. I've had sex with 5 guys. He was really good at sex. The other 4 were rubbish at it. So, but he was good at it, which is why I didn't mind so much doing it. I did far more of it than him. And I could tell you a really funny story that I think you'll love and your listeners will love. Okay, are you ready for it? Brace yourself. So this is how I don't think sexually. This is how my mind works. So my ex was looking in a bookstore with me, and he picked up a Kama Sutra book, and he was looking through it. And I personally, I'm nudity repulsed, and I have this thing where I don't like, if I'm with a boyfriend, for him to go around looking at other naked people. That's how I've always been. And so I thought, okay, he's doing this. So for Christmas, I got him a pocketbook, which was a cartoon book of sex positions, because I just thought he likes looking at that type of thing. So I will give it to him as a present. I didn't think he wanted to use all the different positions on me, which he then proceeded to do over the coming months. And he was like, this is this position. And I'm like, what? He's like, this is this position. This is called that. And so over the course of a lot of months, we did all these different positions that he would be reading in this book. And because I didn't associate that with me, because that's how an asexual brain works. It doesn't associate sexual attraction and sex with yourself. You're like removed of the situation. So I just thought it's a nice like thing for him to look at. I prefer him looking at that than looking at actual naked bodies. And then, but yeah, he was doing all these moves. I just let him get on with it. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I just participated as like someone who's just like participating in a board game or something, you know. It's like, okay, let's do it. Let's just get on and do this. And then he was like, leg here and leg there.
So
and
did you enjoy it? Like, did you find pleasure in those sexual
I
activities?
no, I've always preferred kissing and being touched. So I preferred kissing and foreplay
Okay,
to
so
sex any day. I'm not interested in sex really. I'd rather
okay,
do the
so
washing
I'm
up.
just going to stop you a minute. I just want to get this clear in my head, okay? So if I understand you correctly, the difference there is when he picked up the Kumasatra book, he's looking at it because he wants to try these things with you, and he's looking at it as a future, endeavor with you. Whereas when you're looking at it, you're thinking like, why is he looking at those naked people? Like you had no reference at all that he might want to try some of those things, or that he was thinking of you and him when he was looking at those. Because
No.
to you, that looked just like he's looking at naked people. So
Yeah.
you got him a book of cartoons thinking he just wanted to look at the cartoons. You didn't
Yeah,
ever
it was
connect the dots that he might want to have sex with you in these ways.
no, it's just like a
Okay.
pocketbook. It was like from a card shop, and it was literally a pocketbook. And when I gave it to him, he put it in his wardrobe. So I thought he's just going to forget about it, and he was just going to look at it for his own amusement. Because he bought men's magazines, like Men's Health magazines, which I presume had sex stuff in them sometimes. And so he put it in his wardrobe at the top shelf under the clothes. So I just thought he was going to forget about it or whatever, or get it out when he wanted to just have a look. So it's men and women, but they were cartoons, they were just drawings. Do you know
Right.
what I mean?
So,
So it
and
was
you
great.
did not really enjoy that. You didn't mind doing it.
It, yeah, it was consensual, but it's like one time he tries to instigate sex with me while I'm doing the washing up. I've got my music playing in my headphones, and it's like I'd rather do the washing up. And I hate
Right.
washing up. I buy paper plates. I hate washing up that much. But I'd rather stay washing up and listen to music any day than have sex. And he was coming up behind me, trapping from my breath, all ready to go. And I was thinking, I just want to do the washing up and listen to my music. Do you know what I mean? Because that's how I think. I'm not bothered
Right.
about having it. But because I love the kissing so much, because I love the touching, which I did get excited by, but I didn't get, sex doesn't really do anything for me. I can feel it. Sometimes it used to leave me feeling raw as well. Sometimes you used to cry and I didn't know why. Not all the time, but sometimes. So I guess it's because I don't really, my heart wasn't really in it. I don't really want to do it in the first place. I'd rather do the kissing and, the foreplay and stuff like that, and not actually have, the genitals involved, or not in a way like that anyway. Like if I'm sat between a guy's legs, I'm okay about that. If I'm sat on his lap and his penis is there and his in his pants or whatever, as long as his trousers are on, he's covered up, I'm okay sat on his lap like that. I
Okay.
don't mind, which some sexuals would probably find quite erogenous. But I'm okay with stuff like that, because I like a teenager style romance, with guys
I
who are like
see.
21 above. So I like
Wow.
all the kissing and cuddling and stuff, but I don't need the sex. Yeah.
Okay. So then you find the pleasure in just the connection, the kissing, the enjoyment of doing things together, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I
Okay.
like going to theme parks, zoos, aquariums, clubbing,
Right.
out for meals, cinema. So, and talking, I'm very interested in an intelligent guy, but what I
I
call
couldn't
intelligent,
tell that you like to talk.
chat show host, I got to practice every day, haven't I?
Well, it's okay, Sandra. It just means that you're a verbal processor. You process information by talking.
Yeah, I love talking.
Yes.
It's the art
Yeah.
form of it.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to ask you my next question because I'm going to forget my questions here. I'm chatting away with you. I wanted to know, can an asexual be happy in a long-term relationship? I'd imagine with another asexual, but with somebody who does like sex. Like, how would that work in a long-term relationship, or can it work?
Okay, so I told you about my Asexual Guide to Sex book, and I have to say that everyone in that book has had sex before, and it's to help asexuals decide whether they want to have sex or not, if for
Okay.
those who are thinking about having it. So certain sex repulsed asexuals that don't want it ever, and that's fine. I do not say anyone should have sex if they don't want it. They shouldn't have it. But some asexuals come to me and they're like, I don't know what to do, Sandra. So this book helps those type of people to make an informed decision and choice. Now, some people in the book are still having sex and they're in relationships with sexuals, and some aren't having sex anymore and they don't ever want it again, without giving the whole book away. But yeah, so
Right.
it depends where they fall on the asexual spectrum, which I must, like, I know that's one of your questions, like what's the asexuality spectrum, which we'll have to address soon, because otherwise people will
Right.
be like,
Well,
what's
go
this
ahead. You
spectrum?
can go ahead and address that.
Oh,
What
right.
is
Okay.
asexual?
Yeah. Yeah. So the asexuality spectrum, So basically, there's a spectrum called of asexuals called the asexuality spectrum, and basically the asexuality spectrum goes on a range from those aromantics or aromantics, as a lot of people pronounce them, asexuals, those who experience no romantic attraction and no sexual attraction. And then kind of in the middle, there's a romantic asexuals, those that want a romantic relationship, experience romantic attraction but no sexual attraction, to those that are on the more grey asexual end of the spectrum. So the grey asexuals, the textbook definition of a grey asexual is those that feel sexual attraction only under limited, rare or specific circumstances, or they feel it but not enough to want to act on it. And then you go into the demisexuals, which is part of the grey asexuals. And a demisexual can only experience sexual attraction when a deep, deep emotional bond has been formed. Now, some people will say to me, well, don't lots of sexuals want an emotional bond? It's not the same. Yes, a lot of people do want an emotional bond, but demisexuals cannot experience sexual attraction until, when and if they get an emotional bond with someone. And it's reciprocated, maintained and sustained usually by the other party. Otherwise, they're just the same as other asexuals. They don't experience any sexual attraction. So, and then there's lots of subcategories in between. And obviously you could get an aromantic, someone who lacks romantic attraction, demisexual, but they still, you know, can experience sexual attraction when a deep emotional bond's been formed. So there's lots of subcategories. So I'm sorry if people are listening now and I haven't said your subcategory, because there's just loads and loads of them. But this is why you know, some asexuals as well are sex positive. And so, because they don't experience sexual attraction, but sexual behavior is different, they can partake in sex even though they're not sexually attracted to the person. So how
Well,
this works?
will they enjoy it? Like, are they turned on?
Some kind of like do it to please their partner, which for me personally, I don't think that's a great thing to do. If they're not enjoying it themselves, some
Right.
don't really enjoy it. They're just looking at the clock and want to get over quickly. And it's kind of a process that they just do to please it. So, for example, in my Asexual Perspectives book, there's a person called Marnie, whose story I read part of recently. And she's in a relationship. She's been married to a sexual person for years, and she found out she was asexual in the marriage. And she's been married for a very long time. He's very sexual, so they agree to have sex once a week. But she says he knows I'm only doing it for him, and I'm just waiting for the clock to get it over. And personally, for me, I don't think that's a good, healthy relationship. Do you know what I mean? I think it's better
Yeah, because if you don't really want to, like, sex is a very intimate, serious thing. It's a part of
yeah,
who you are. So, you know, your desires, your needs, what you do want matters a lot. And if you're constantly overriding yourself, that'll have a long-term
yeah.
effect on you.
Yeah, so there's that person there, but then there's other people. So, for example, in my Asexual Guide to Sex book, without giving it all away, there's some people that do enjoy sex. They enjoy it as an activity to do with their partner. They tend to be predominantly on the more sexual end of the spectrum, so like the grey asexuals or the demisexuals. And they, you know, they can enjoy it in a relationship. They can enjoy the physicality of it, but they still think differently. Like when people read my Asexual Guide to Sex book, rather than me just saying they think differently, it's like an immersive experience when you're in the minds of the person whose story, your real life
Right.
story you're reading. And you can tell they think differently. It's more like mechanical. It's more, you know, they're going through the motions of what do I do? A lot of asexuals don't know how to have sex, which is why I wrote the book. They don't know what to do with their hands, their legs, their arms. It doesn't come
Okay.
naturally to them because it's not part of who they are. So that's why I did the book. It literally asks, you know, what should you do with your arms if you're having sex? What should you do with the hands? What should you
Right.
do with your legs? You know,
Um,
and
I
and
think
some
I
asexuals.
wonder, like, some of what you're describing, because you know I've been an ADHD specialist and, you know, autistic syndrome and all that stuff on the spectrum. Are a lot of the people who are asexual autistic?
Some people who are asexual autistic, yeah, but not all.
Okay.
And I've known autistic people that aren't asexual. They love sex.
Okay.
So there's a very big misconception that everyone who's asexual is autistic. I'm not autistic.
Right.
You know, my best asexual friend, they have had one test that suggests they might be autistic, but they're waiting for the full test.
Okay.
And some of my friends, you know, asexual friends, I have got another couple of friends, they're both autistic, but not everyone is autistic. I know
Okay.
I know 3 people all in my city who are asexual, and none of them are autistic.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't like it when people say, oh, well, all asexual autistic. It's simply not true. Some are, some aren't,
Right.
so
Well, I
it's
think a lot of it depends on interest too, right? So,
on.
okay, so wait, let me get to my next question. Okay, so how did you learn that you were asexual?
Okay. Can I just say one thing as well?
Oh,
Because you're
yes.
asking about relationships. I forgot to say, which is really important, that asexuals can be in relationships with other asexuals.
Okay.
You were asking about if they can be in relationships with sexuals. And also, there's someone in my Asexual Perspectives book who's with a bisexual and they're not having sex. So the sexual person is happy to not have sex. And
Okay.
I know someone else who's been with their girlfriend for 2 years and they don't have sex. It's a long distance relationship. He's highly heterosexual and she is an aromantic asexual. So,
Right.
and there's I know a guy who's got a young fiance and they're both asexual, and I have a friend who's married to an asexual. They're both asexual, so you can have relationships with asexual, other asexuals, live happily ever after with no sex
Okay.
whatsoever. So it's
So
very
they're
important to
finding
say,
pleasures
that
in other
it,
things.
yeah, it's usually activities to share together, common interests, life goals, supporting each other, watching movies, and
Right.
just
So
enjoying life.
everything else, just not the sex.
Yeah, because they don't get pleasure from it. That's the point.
Right.
Unless they're getting pleasure from it, there's no point in having it. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Because it's not
Totally.
healthy for them. So
I
they're in loving,
understand.
healthy, happy relationships which haven't got sex involved because that doesn't make them happy. So,
Right. Okay.
some people say to me, oh, well, like, oh, sex is really healthy. I'm like, it's only healthy if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it and you're being coerced or pressurized into it, it's sexual abuse or rape at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah. Consent
asexuals.
is huge. We did a show on consent. We're going to do more. Consent is everything.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
everyone just assumes that people want sex, and it's really destructive to people who
Yeah.
don't want that. And it shouldn't be like a given that that's the case, because asexuals are genuine, and for a lot of asexuals do not want sex. A lot of sex repulse. A lot don't have any sexual feelings. They
Right.
don't want to participate in sex. They find it gross. Even the idea of it, or parts of it, they really find gross as well. And they don't want genitals anywhere near them. A lot of asexuals are virgins. A lot of them haven't even
Okay.
had relationships. So it's important to let people know about that as well. So
Okay.
your next question was, how did I find out I was asexual?
Yeah. How did you find out you were asexual?
Yeah, so I went to see a counsellor because I was having problems that when I dated sexual guys,
Mm-hmm.
that basically the expectation of sex at the end of the night made me nearly wet myself. I just couldn't deal with it anymore because it was too much, the sexual energy from them, the expectation they wanted sex, and I knew I didn't want it. I had sex in the past. Last time was 2011. I've been sex free for 9 years this year. Woohoo! It's my
Yeah.
9 years.
Some people would cry over that.
I know. I'm so happy. I'm like, yeah, baby, a life without sex. I'm rocking
Well,
and rolling.
good for being true to yourself.
Yeah, I'm so happy. I'm going to be celebrating in November because October. I don't know what date it was, but in October it was 2011.
Okay.
So
Good.
like November, I'll be going Ray. Party time. So yeah, so I went to this counselor and I explained to her that I don't know what to do because I want a relationship, and I'm dating these sexual guys, and the expectation of sex at the end of the night is getting so bad. I'm nearly wetting my pants basically, and it's very upsetting, and I don't know what to do because I was pretty much at that point giving up on dating and relationships completely and thinking there's no one for me. I'm going to have to be alone forever because I just don't want sex in a relationship. I just can't do it anymore. I physically can't. I tried to force myself like the year before in 2013 with the Bangladesh guy, and I couldn't. I ended up being in the shower naked with him just to give him some sexual pleasure and I was forcing myself to do that. I didn't want to do that,
Right.
and I was showering him down naked just so he could look at me, and it was like,
So,
I should be doing
and
something like that.
what did the counselor say to you?
Oh, it was shocking. She said, you have to have sex in order to keep a good guy, and obviously,
She said that. She said
yes,
you had to have sex.
those specific words, you had to have
Wow.
sex in order to keep a good guy, and to me that's a license for rape. Do you know what I mean? If I
Yeah.
don't want it,
And I just want to put a caveat here. That's not a good person to go see, because no therapist should be telling you what to do or not to do. They should just help you understand what you really want.
yeah. And what was even worse is I found out, I went home and Googled, I love kissing, not sex. And it came up with Asexuality and Avon, which is Asexuality Visibility Education Network. And there was tons of forums there of people that were like wanting relationships without sex and that were living, loving and being happy in of themselves without sex. And I was like, yay, this is great. But I actually told her about that. The counsellor, who was an NHS counsellor, so a professional counsellor, I went back and told her about that. I found out about this thing called asexuality. And I asked her to like look into it because I thought I was it. And when I had the next session with her, she hadn't bothered. She's like, oh, the NHS won't let us do stuff like that because of that type of content. And then I said to her, well, you could have looked it up at home. And she just wasn't bothered. And her face and attitude said it all. She wasn't bothered. She wasn't interested. She didn't want to know. And it was upsetting me. So she said, I think we better end our sessions because you know that you're feeling upset about our conversations. And so I went away and I thought about it because I wanted this problem solved. Because I mean, I thought, you know, it's a big issue. I don't want sex. How am I going to have a relationship? But I knew I couldn't be talking to her anymore because obviously she doesn't understand. But I wanted to go away and make the decision for myself. And then I rang her up and said, no, I won't be coming back again. That's the last time I ever had any counselling, you know? And it's like, it was just a horrendous experience, you know? And I saw her in the street actually, and she gave me a weird look. And I looked at her thinking, you shouldn't have been saying that to me. It's disgusting, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely disgusting. So I was
Yeah.
horrified. But if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be helping asexuals today. So I've got to thank her for that. You have to thank people who are not great.
Everything happens for a reason.
I totally believe that too, yeah. So it was thanks to her that I Googled it, because I wouldn't have Googled I love kissing, not sex, if I hadn't have like had that experience.
And so did you, when you went online, when you went online and you found these this information, were there groups or places where you could call or attend or what?
There's Avon, which is short for Asexuality Visibility Education Network, which has forums that you can see part of, and then you can join that if you want to. So I joined that, but there was also 2 asexual dating sites, which I'm still on to this day, trying to find my asexual
Dating sites. Well,
yes.
Obviously asexuals would do great dating other asexuals. That's a good thing. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, the only problem is there's some people that go on there that are not really asexual, and some of them are honest and others aren't honest about it. So yes, that can be quite not very good sometimes. And
yeah,
also
well, that would be confusing.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to find someone because a lot of asexuals are introverted. A lot of them don't want to make the first move in talking. So they, unfortunately, in my personal experience and experience of my friends, some of my friends as well, because sex is not involved in the relationship, sadly, in my experience of the asexual dating scene, a lot of them are not that bothered whether they have a relationship or not. There's no driving force there like there is with sexuals, you know. But I approach loads of people because I'm extrovert. I'm a minority within a minority because I'm extrovert. There's not many of us. And yeah, and so I approached loads of people. Well, I say loads, over the years, because it's 2014 since I've been on there. But I want a younger, foreign, asexual Indian guy, without sex, without marriage, and without kids. And that was quite hard to get. And I like living on my own. But I think there's someone for everyone. So if my asexual Indian story waits out there in the UK, please contact me.
No, you know what she's looking for.
Yeah, I'll probably get like 200 or 300 or 500 sexual Indian guys now after me, but you know,
yeah,
like,
no, only asexuals. She was very specific. Only asexuals. If you don't want sex, if you don't like sex. Okay, so we're not a dating show though. So let's just move past that. All right. So, well, that's awesome. I really appreciate your openness and your willingness to talk to us about these things, because I know tons of people are like me, don't really know much about that at all. And a lot of people, and this is probably the biggest misconception, because I said this to Sandra and she said, oh, that's a misconception. And she didn't like it, but they think that, well, if you had a good lover, or if you had somebody who was more your sexual type, or you'd be okay. But she's tried them all, she said, and she doesn't like any of them. And even with her great lover, she would enjoy it to a point, but it was not really the sex. Like the sex didn't do anything for her. So just make sure that you got that. He was a great lover. She just wasn't interested. I just wanted to repeat that in case people miss out on that, you know, because it is a huge misconception. right?
Yeah, it's a huge misconception. I mean,
Yeah.
he was very attentive. He was more attentive to my physical needs than I was his,
Right.
to be honest, because he liked sex. So long as
Right.
I was getting my pleasure, he was very switched on to the fact that a guy needs to really give women good pleasure in order to get
Right.
what he wants, which is the sex. So
Right.
he's very switched on to that, but he's in a
Yeah.
very loving
And see,
way.
she
Yeah.
still didn't enjoy sex. I just want to make that clear. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you my last question, and that is, what else would you like people to know about asexuality? Is there
Asexual.
anything that you haven't covered?
Well, asexuality can be a journey of discovery. So when you first find out you're asexual, you could think you're one part of the asexual spectrum, and as you progress, you could actually find out that you're on, that you're a different type of category, if you like, of what you originally thought you were. So because asexuality is so huge and there's so many subcategories, it's really good to actually do research, look closely into it, and take your time to define who you think you really are. Do you know what I mean? And there's no right or wrong way to be asexual, you know. So some people like who are asexual, some asexuals do watch porn, some do masturbate, some are into BDSM but without the actual intercourse, some have got kinks. So again, a lot of these are myths and stereotypes that have to be broken, but it's it's imperative people know there are a lot of asexuals that are sex repulsed. They don't want sex, they want nothing to do with it. So be very careful when you're talking to an asexual to make sure you know that they're not all the same. There's some don't even like the mention of the word sex, whereas others don't mind it. I don't mind other people having sex as long as I'm not involved. I got friends that are both
Right.
asexual and friends that aren't asexual, and
Right.
I'm personally sex repulsed for me, but not others. They can talk to me about it. And actually, on my asexual live chat show, we discuss sex in some of the shows because I cover all the asexuality spectrum, not just certain types of asexual. So those
Right.
that don't like sex at all and those that don't mind it or are sex positive. And I discuss things like dry humping. I've even got a demonstration video on that. It's very
Dry humping.
with
Can
the
we say
cuddly
this on
toy.
Facebook?
It's with a cuddly toy, I might add, not a real
Okay.
person.
Okay.
Cuddly toys are much better.
That's funny. Okay. As you see, Sandra is very entertaining, and I could sit here and listen to her all night. I do want to ask you, though, Sandra, you have several places where people can find
Yes,
you. So I'm going to
I
list
could.
them all on this video. But did you
And
want to say anything that any of those? That's her book.
yes, don't forget to get a copy of Asexual Perspectives book. It's very, very important. If you're
Okay.
new to asexuality, this answers pretty much every and all question you'd originally have about asexuality. And the good thing about this is it shows you the diversity across the asexual spectrum. So this book I wrote to celebrate our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it.
Okay.
So it's got 47 different stories, and they're all in a chapter on their own, so it's really easy to read.
Okay.
So any questions, yeah, definitely get the book. It's out on Amazon, or you can order it from good bookshops.
I'm going to get the book because I work with people sometimes that don't know if they are asexual or not. So I need to know. That's a
Yeah.
great idea. And you know what? I want to mention someone because since we talked last time, I've met somebody whose child is asexual. And we
Uh-huh.
discussed that. And I was like, that would have been a great book for a parent to have because she didn't know what to do when her child was growing up, you know?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that we don't know about sexuality, and asexuality is one of those things. We just don't know about it. So thank you for sharing and telling us about it. I so appreciate that. And so I'm going to wrap up here and say thank you to everybody who's watching. I know it's a replay tonight. I hope that you enjoy it and that you ask your questions. You know, you can put them in the comments or you can send them to coachdianed@gmail.com. So thank you and have a great night. And don't forget to make pleasure first. Bye.